And of all the teams that are sitting there at 1-5, or in the Jets' case 0-6, the Ravens are the one team that at least I sit back and still go, they might be okay. John Harbaugh is after the game talking about the state of the roster, where they are, the disappointment, but also just a rather optimistic tone, quite frankly, about where they stand, the opportunity that lies ahead for the Ravens. But it takes me back to what I thought at the time. This is not second guessing, and Eric DaCosta has been as good as anybody at roster building and always being aggressive. But I remember thinking back in March, the Ravens giving Cooper Rush a 2-year deal worth up to $12.2 million was an odd decision. And not because Cooper Rush hasn't won in the league. He has. Statistically, in terms of wins and losses in his time in Dallas, he's been one of the best. But you've spent so long building an offense around a quarterback who can move. And you go to a guy in Cooper Rush who does not move. He is a strict pocket passing quarterback. And when you watch the Ravens offense over the last, let's say 7 quarters, because started the fourth quarter yesterday, all of a sudden Stu Utley's out there, and lo and behold, quarterback run threat, you can call different plays. It looked like they didn't have a really good plan in place for how they were going to utilize the guy. And that's not to indict the coaches here, but realistically, when you are building an offense through the offseason, when you've been building it around Lamar Jackson like the Ravens have for 8 years, and everything that you're doing in an offseason like this one is about how do we complement this unique offense we've already put in place and now do things that are additive to it? How do we challenge defenses with all these things that we can do that nobody else can do, because nobody else has a Lamar Jackson? When you take away the quarterback run threat, you take away the keepers, you take away the option plays, you take away the scrambling ability, it changes everything, and it makes your entire offense more predictable. Think about it this way. The Ravens offense, they've been one of the best teams in the league for years at utilizing the tight ends. And not just because Lamar is very comfortable working the seams, working the middle of the field, and getting the ball to Mark Andrews, getting the ball to Isaiah Likely, but also because those guys are more like receivers in terms of the blocking phase. When they get out and Lamar takes off, they can block in space. They're receiving tight ends, but they can do it in space. When you got Cooper Rush, and all of a sudden you're like, we got to play more inline, we've got to change things because this guy's not going to get out in space. Everybody knows what you're doing. It doesn't put those guys in a position to succeed. When you're building your run game, again, off the threat of Lamar, every time that there's an inside handoff to Derrick Henry, you've got the threat. He might pull it and go outside. You might be able to do that once with Cooper Rush. We've seen Tom Brady and Peyton Manning on the occasional naked over the years, right?
Sure.
But what you're not going to do is regularly giving him the option to do that. Derrick Henry finally got rolling a little bit yesterday. First 100-yard game he's had since, I think, week 1.
Week 1, yeah.
They fumbled the football again. Zay Flowers, who never fumbles, had a shoulder. I don't know if that's a factor in it. It was kind of iffy through the week if he was going to be able to play. He went out there. He fumbled twice. Makes me think that maybe there was an issue with the shoulder. But the way that offense functioned, again, Stu Utley made the Pro Bowl once, several years ago when he took over for Lamar. Even then, if you look at the Ravens stats, it's not like they were scoring a ton of points. He was playing good enough. He was like the 7th alternate.
Yep.
And he ends up getting into the Pro Bowl.
Sure.
But when he came out there, so you're like, oh, this is what we're used to seeing from the Ravens, because you had those types of threats. We know they've been as beat up as pretty much any team outside of, well, definitely as of yesterday, San Francisco takes the cake. They are number one with a bullet. Bucs are not far behind. We'll get to both those teams in that game, which was a ton of fun to watch in a little bit here. But the Ravens have had a ton of injuries. Here's part of what John Harbaugh had to say post-game yesterday about the state of this Ravens team.
This is just why so many things in the game itself. I mean, the players we have, we're going to have healthy players coming back. I mean, our quarterback's going to be back. That's probably a big one, you know. Our middle linebacker will be back. And then all the things from the tape that we saw. I thought our defense played pretty darn well against a high-powered offense. That was good to see. We needed to see that. We added a safety. I thought that dynamic was a good dynamic for us on defense. When you watch that, you're probably going to You're probably going to feel pretty good about that when you watch that tape again. So, and within that, the way individual players played. So that's it. Only 3 teams have done it? Good. What an opportunity.
Only 3 teams beginning 1-5 and making the playoffs. This is a 17-game season. And when you take a look at the standings right now in the AFC North, the Steelers are 4-1. They're on a short week going to Cincinnati, which is in second place at 2-4, despite a 4-game losing streak and multiple quarterback changes. And then you got the Ravens, who are tied with the Browns at 1-5. The Ravens, though, still, I tend to side with John Harbaugh. And this could be totally wrong. Not having Roquan, not having Lamar. They got Kyle Hamilton back yesterday. They got Ronnie Stanley back yesterday. They are getting healthier. Nnamdi Madubuike's out for the season. That's a bigger deal than I think people realize. They've gone stretches without Kyle Van Noy through the course of the season. Isaiah Likely is clearly still getting his legs back underneath him. But I tend to believe what John Harbaugh is selling here, which is that get Lamar back, get Roquan back. Why can't you make a run? If you take a look at the Ravens' schedule, and again, so they got the bye. They're off in week 8. You got the Bears at home, at Miami, at Minnesota, which has major moving parts in terms of the quarterback position. We'll talk about that in a bit. At Cleveland, home against the Jets. And then you got the Bengals twice in a 3-week span, which by that point the Bengals will know, are they still in it? Or does this thing continue to go sideways beginning Thursday night against the Steelers in a battle of 40-something-year-old quarterbacks on 3 days rest, which should be a lot of fun Thursday night. It's set up for the Ravens to get themselves back into this thing, assuming that Lamar, as I said yesterday morning on Game Day Morning on NFL Network, and as John Harbaugh reiterated, they believe, they're hopeful. Hopeful is the best word. That Lamar is back after the bye. On the flip side of that, and again, we're basically at the 1/3 point, just like this show. Me taking over for Rich.
1/3.
We're also 1/3 of the way into the NFL season.
Right.
6 weeks into an 18-week schedule. Yesterday, to me, sitting back after my 2 a.m. wake-up call, doing TV, being back at the hotel by 5:15, watching games the entire day.
Look at you.
Yesterday felt like the day where the players on a lot of these bad teams realized it ain't getting better. You go back to the Jets game. Garrett Wilson reacted before halftime exactly as I was reacting, watching it, exactly as Kurt Warner, who was rendered speechless on the NFL Network broadcast, was reacting to it. I have never seen a sequence like that in the NFL. And Richard Kirk kept saying, the Broncos sniffed out that fake punt. They sniffed it out because Breece Hall is on the field as the personal protector.
What gave it away?
And they didn't run it fast. They took forever to get out there. They've got a solid 20 seconds for Darren Rizzi to go, guys, Breece Hall's on the field.
Yeah.
You see him? He's going to get the ball. They still run the play. They pick it up. You're going, okay. Right, that was wild. I don't know why they would have thought they could sneak their starting running back out there on a special teams play against people as attuned as Darren Rizzi and Sean Payton. Somehow they got away with it. They then ran a grand total of 3 plays over the final minute, including the last play with 37 seconds to go. And I understand, we heard from Aaron Glenn earlier in the show, there was confusion about did they pick up the first down, did they not? But at a bare minimum, you're not at your own 20. You're almost at midfield. And if you don't have a quarterback who you think can at least throw the ball to the end zone and let Garrett Wilson go up and try to catch it, what are we doing here? That's even setting aside some of the other decisions, punting on 4th and 1 late, where every analytic metric would tell you, go for it and try to win the game. Garrett Wilson being apoplectic, I'm with him. That happens sometimes. Receivers get upset about getting the ball. This wasn't even like throw me the ball. This was throw anyone the ball. Not to mention they ran it on the snap after the fake punt. So they gave the ball to Breece Hall on a fake punt, but then also ran it on the next first down. There was no urgency. There was no attitude to it. And I'm not ripping Aaron Glenn here. He's 6 games in. Nobody should ever judge a head coach 6 games into his tenure. But Nathaniel Hackett, back 4 years ago in Denver, the Broncos hired a game management consultant 1 game in for lesser sins than what we saw yesterday from the Jets. They literally were like, well, he can't do it. We got to bring somebody in here. The way that entire game was managed was just frustrating. And I know there's a lot of corollaries from where Aaron Glenn came from in Detroit. He's trying to build a culture. He's trying to build that attitude into the program. But you saw evidence of that even when the Lions were losing early on of we're going for it. We're a team that goes for it on 4th down. We're a team that is going to have attitude and run the football, particularly in the latter stretch of the season, that first year with Dan Campbell, where he took over the play calling, and they just ran the crap out of the football. It just seems like the Jets are trying to figure out who they are, and there's a lot of times, and again, I mean this with deference to Aaron Glenn as a young head coach who is learning, there's a lot of times where it feels like they're a team with nothing to lose that is playing not to lose. Which when he drops back 9 times, he gets sacked and doesn't want to get the football out. I get to a certain degree. But that moment, I agree, run the clock down. But snap it with 3 seconds to go and try to make something happen.
You're right.
You are struggling to find anything resembling offense.
Yeah.
Get a snap off. Yeah. The Browns, 1-5. Myles Garrett was at the podium post-game. A guy who, let's remember, back in February, requested a trade. And that was not a negotiating tactic. That was not him trying to get money out of the deal. That was Myles going, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to go through a rebuild. This is clearly a rebuild. I don't want to be part of this. Andrew Berry, the organization, had a plan. It did not involve trading Myles Garrett. Myles tried everything, including going directly to the owner. And the answer was, we are not trading. So he did the only other thing he could do as a guy who didn't have much leverage from a contract perspective because he was signed for so long. He took the raise. You can't get out. At least you can get more money.
Yep.
But when he's being asked repeatedly, like, is it frustrating to keep losing the same way? Yes. Yes, it is. The Browns and Kevin Stefanski, you could feel it from him because he's trying to get a young quarterback in Dylan Gabriel rolling. He's trying to pour everything he's got into a guy that he believes in. And he's not getting a lot of help around him. Every game, the Browns might lead the league in-game offensive line changes because guys get hurt. Yesterday, Jack Conklin gets a concussion, and then the left tackle Cam Robinson gets rolled up. He leaves the game. They've had like 8 different tackles or something this season. And then Jerry Jeudy's dropping the football. There's no help. The whole thing isn't there. But it felt like a moment yesterday where this is not going to get better.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.